If you're enjoying these political deep dives, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Today we're looking at House Resolution 7, focusing on women's health care.
Okay.
The title is a mouthful. Recognizing the importance of access to comprehensive, high-quality, life-affirming medical care for women of all ages.
Hmm.
Sounds pretty positive, right?
Yes, on the surface, it seems like something everyone could support.
But we also have an article from the Feminist Majority Foundation that says the resolution has a hidden anti-abortion agenda.
Interesting.
So let's unpack this, starting with Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona. He introduced the resolution, and he's known as a pretty conservative figure.
Okay.
He's a former chairman of the House Freedom Caucus,
Uh-huh.
and now he chairs the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance. Oh, and one more interesting thing. He also has his own podcast.
Does he really?
Yeah, it's called What's the Big GGS Idea?
Huh. Well, that's relevant, I guess. It suggests that he understands the power of media, podcasts and all that, and shaping how people think. And his conservative stance will definitely influence how we look at this resolution.
Absolutely. Now, Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, he co-sponsored the resolution, and he's considered one of the most conservative members of Congress, too.
Okay.
He has a background in the military and law enforcement. And get this, the Center for Effective Lawmaking ranked him highly for effectiveness.
So his effectiveness rating highlights the potential impact of this resolution. I mean, if he's known for getting things done, then this resolution could have some real consequences.
Let's take a closer look at the actual language of H.Res.7.
Okay.
One phrase that stands out is life-affirming care.
Life-affirming care.
And the Feminist Majority Foundation points out that this term is often used in anti-abortion contexts.
Right. The choice of language is important here.
Mm-hmm.
Life-affirming can be interpreted in many ways, but in this context of reproductive rights, it often signals opposition to abortion.
Another thing that stood out to me, the resolution talks about women's health care, but then includes men, families, and communities.
Huh. That's strange.
Yeah, the FMF article finds this suspicious and unexplained.
Well, it definitely raises questions. Why broaden the scope like that when it's supposed to be about women's health care? Could it be a way to shift the conversation away from women's autonomy and their rights over their own bodies?
The resolution goes on to praise pro-women's health care centers as an example of high-quality care.
Now, this is where the FMF has some serious concerns. They call these centers fake clinics that push a religious agenda over evidence-based care.
Really?
Yeah, that's a pretty serious claim.
It is.
We should definitely look into that.
Well, H.Res.7 paints a very positive picture of these centers, praising their comprehensive services and their nationwide presence.
But the FMF article says that they don't offer abortion care or contraception, and that they promote the view that abortion is not women's health care.
That's a big difference in perspective.
It is. This issue is clearly more complex than it seems at first glance.
So we have this resolution that seems to support women's health care, but uses language that's often associated with anti-abortion views. And then there are these questions about these pro-women's healthcare centers and their impact on women looking for comprehensive care.
It makes you wonder what the true intention behind H.Res.7 really is. Is it actually about supporting women's health care? Or is it pushing a political agenda under the guise of this positive-sounding initiative? I think we need to dig deeper into this. Look at the motivations and what the consequences of this resolution could be. The FMF is worried about more than just the language and, the intent of this resolution. They're really concerned about how it could impact marginalized communities.
Right. These restrictions on reproductive health care tend to disproportionately affect those who already struggle to get access to health care in the first place.
Yeah.
Low-income women, women of color, and those in rural areas.
Exactly. These are communities that often lack proper healthcare, infrastructure and resources.
Yeah.
More restrictions could make those existing health disparities even worse and create even bigger obstacles for them to get the care they need.
It's scary to think about the maternal mortality rates in the U.S. Black and indigenous women experience maternal mortality rates 2 to 3 times higher than white women.
Wow, that's alarming.
It is, and it really makes you question the fairness of our healthcare system and the potential consequences of these policies that restrict access to care.
It's about more than just those mortality rates, too. Restricted access to reproductive health care can affect a woman's entire well-being. Her economic stability, her ability to plan her family, her educational opportunities.
It's about so much more than just healthcare. It's about a woman's control over her own life and her future.
Exactly. And the FMF is also concerned about these pro-women's health care centers, the ones the resolution praises.
Yeah.
They argue that these centers could actually limit access to comprehensive reproductive health care even more, especially for those who are already marginalized.
Yeah, it comes back to the question of intent then. Is H.Res.7 really about supporting women's health care like the title says? Or is it a sneaky way to push an agenda that could actually harm the very people it claims to help?
That's the core issue here. We have to look beyond just what's written on the surface and really examine the language, the motivations, and the potential consequences of this resolution.
Right, it's not just about what's said out loud, but also about what might be implied or what they're not saying.
The AFMF is basically saying that this resolution is all part of a bigger strategy to restrict access to abortion and, comprehensive reproductive health care, but they're doing it under this guise of promoting life-affirming care.
Which is pretty misleading.
It is, and it raises some ethical questions about transparency in the way they're using language. If a resolution is trying to restrict access to certain healthcare services, shouldn't they just say that outright and have an open debate about it?
This lack of transparency makes it hard to trust our political institutions. When the language used to promote a policy doesn't match up with what could actually happen, it just creates confusion and distrust among the people those policies are supposed to be helping.
This all ties into the bigger picture of reproductive rights in the U.S. We're seeing this trend towards more and more restrictions on abortion access, especially in certain states.
And H.Res.7, while it's not a law itself, could be seen as part of this movement to take away reproductive rights.
The FMF believes that if this resolution passes, it could send a message that supports policies restricting access to reproductive health care and encourage those who want to further limit women's autonomy and bodily rights.
We need to think about the ripple effects this could have. Could it set a precedent for similar resolutions in other states? Could it affect how funding is allocated for reproductive health care services?
These are all important questions to consider.
We need to understand how this resolution fits into the bigger political picture and what its passage could mean for the future of reproductive rights in this country.
To really get what H.Res.7 is all about, I think we need to look at the idea of reproductive justice. It's a framework that goes beyond that whole pro-choice versus pro-life debate. It recognizes that reproductive rights are connected to social justice and human rights.
Okay, so it's bigger than just abortion access.
Right. It's about more than that.
So what else does this framework cover?
Well, reproductive justice advocates for the right to have children, the right to not have children, and the right to parent children in safe and healthy environments. It's about making sure that everyone, no matter who they are, has the resources and support and freedom to make decisions about their own bodies and their families without facing all these barriers.
That makes a lot of sense. So when we look at H.Res.7 through this lens of reproductive justice, how does it measure up?
Well, the FMF says it falls short. They see it as promoting a very limited view of women's health care, one that doesn't really align with the broader goals of reproductive justice. For example, the resolution stresses this life-affirming care, but reproductive justice is more about individual choice, that agency and the right to make informed choices about their reproductive health.
Right. Reproductive justice is about empowering people to make the decisions that are best for them, no matter what their circumstances are.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that reproductive health care is a human right, not a privilege. It means we need to address the systemic inequalities that prevent certain communities from accessing quality care, like providing comprehensive sex education, affordable contraception, prenatal care, and safe abortion services.
So the FMF is saying that H.Res.7, even though it talks about women's health care, could actually work against reproductive justice.
That's what they're concerned about. They think that by pushing this narrow definition of life-affirming care and highlighting these centers that might not offer a full range of services, it could actually create more barriers for people seeking comprehensive reproductive health care.
And that could have a huge impact on marginalized communities who already face many obstacles.
Exactly. It's like the language of H.Res.7 is carefully chosen to appeal to a certain viewpoint, but it might be hiding some pretty big implications.
It definitely feels like that.
The resolution's emphasis on life-affirming care sounds positive on the surface, but it can also be interpreted in ways that align with those anti-abortion viewpoints. And that kind of ambiguity could lead to unintended consequences, especially if it's used to justify policies that restrict access to care.
This has been really eye-opening. It's so important to understand the nuances of political language and how these seemingly harmless resolutions can actually have a big impact.
Absolutely.
So what can our listeners do?
to stay informed and participate in these conversations?
Well, first of all, be critical of the information you come across. Don't just take things at face value. Do your own research, look into the sources, and consider different perspectives. And stay engaged with your elected officials. Let them know what you think about reproductive rights and healthcare access.
And, of course, support organizations working to advance reproductive justice and ensure that everyone has access to healthcare. Exactly, by staying informed, speaking up, and supporting those who are fighting for these rights. We can help create a future where everyone has the freedom to make choices about their own bodies and families without shame or stigma.